Good afternoon. It's Harvey here, and I'd like to introduce you to another episode of Grow Tech Fast. So our special guest on this week's show is Itai from Intezer. Really good to have you on board here. Thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your day. I guess to start off, it'd be great to get a little bit of an introduction of yourself and Intezer, what you guys do.
For sure. First of all, happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. So, a brief introduction about myself. My name's Itai. I'm CEO and co-founder of a company called Intezer, which is a business I started a few years back. And my personal background is in the operational cyber security field. I basically led a government incident response team, cyber incident response team for a few years. So every time that a nation state tried to attack our network, I led the team that needed to deal with that. And I'm happy to talk about Intezer. Let me know, do you want me to give like a quick overview about the company?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it'd be great to get a bit of an insight into what you guys do.
Sure, yeah. So on a very high level, the reason why we founded Intezer was to create what we call a globally shared immune system against malicious code. So I know it sounds fancy, but the basic idea is that we remember every piece of code from any cyber threat seen in history. So then we can identify any mutation, variation, any evolution, basically any reuse of code from previously seen threats. So that helps us to help organizations really stay ahead of the curve, kind of what we call evolve your security faster than threats mutate. Yeah. So you can think about us as sort of like the Pfizer or Moderna of cyber threats, because we continuously track variants in the wild using our technology, and then we produce constant vaccinations or detection content to really be able to stay ahead of the curve. I hope that makes sense.
100%. Certainly, with regards to this space, there seems to have been an awful lot of momentum, that's kind of come about over the past few years. Seems to be a lot of investment in the space. So, really exciting. So in terms of quite an interesting background from yourself, obviously working within the government. How did you find yourself making that transition into founding your own vendor?
Yeah. Well, to me, it was kind of natural. The government, let's say, facilities and job is very different than the startup world. But I have it in my DNA, I guess. While being in the government was extremely interesting. I dealt with the best attackers in the world. Undercover operations, very interesting stuff. But in the end of the day, first I want to tell my wife what I do, and secondly, create something is something that really excites me. And in the government, I had creativity, but really creating something of my own was not possible, obviously.
No, makes sense, and I guess always good to be able to step out the shadows after a few years, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good stuff. So obviously from what I see, from my side, and numerous CEOs that I speak with, obviously a little bit of a different background. I think a very interesting background. So what key skills would you say that you developed throughout your time working within the government that have helped you be in such a successful place today?
Good question. So I think there are several key skills that are very important. First, I think simply leadership skills. Succeeding to take talented people and excite them. That's and when in my previous job, then many people, at least in my country, in Israel, where people have where I served my military service, you had to take the excitement to new levels because it's a mandatory service. So you have to create that spark in order to have people on board. So that's the first thing. And second thing, I think time management is extremely important when talking about creating a company and all that. So probably these two things, aside from the professional skills that obviously are important. If you create a cyber company, you've got to know what you're doing. So
yeah, well, you'd hope so anyway, right? Cool. So again, I guess with where you guys are today, I've been following you guys. The journey seemed very exciting. Obviously, you've seen some pretty exponential growth over the past few years. But tell me a little bit about that journey. From day one. You're founding the organization to obviously building up to where you guys are today.
Yeah, so we took a quite of a different way as a company. So the company actually started with a technological innovation that was very exciting, but without a specific problem, or should I say specific use case that we wanted to solve. So on a high level, we invented really a way to genetically map software and cyber threats. So for example, if you're familiar with 23andMe or Ancestry.com, that they tell you, hey, you're 20% Chinese and 30% French and all that. So we're able to do the same thing for software in order to really track variants in the wild and also, seeing what kind of vaccinations are required. So that was the technological innovation to help us solve one of the biggest challenges in cybersecurity today, which is threat detection and prevention. But that's on a very high level. So the challenges, especially at the beginning, were, okay, we have this amazing idea, amazing technology. We worked probably 2 years only in R&D to prove that our crazy idea of genetically mapping software is even possible. And then we had this amazing machine and we tried to see, okay, how we can, go to market with it in order to become market leaders of threat detection, because that's kind of a long-term road, right? So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, the world has seen, a number of significant changes over nearly the past 2 years now, right? I guess, being quite an early stage company, stepping into that. I mean, how did that impact you guys, sort of from the beginning of 2020?
You mean the rise of the need for the continuous headlines about cyber threats or something else?
So like COVID coming around,
COVID.
Sort of the enterprises kind of changing. There being a big shift to remote working. How did that impact you guys as kind of a business selling into these enterprises?
Well, the use case somewhat changed along the way, but not a significant impact, I gotta say. I mean, except like putting aside, dreadful April till July in New York City, that was horrible, of course. But other than that time span, haven't seen so much of a big impact on our business. But for example, now that people are working more from home and so on, so that requires kind of a different use case that we can cater for. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
Yeah, cool. Because certainly, the conversation I've been having in the market, obviously, there've been such a shift over the past few years. As an enterprise, right, the attack surface has increased significantly. Kind of born out of that have been, a number of different threats that have kind of come about off the back of that. So I guess, a key question for myself and certainly for the listeners as well would be, what kind of key successes have you experienced, up until now, where you guys sit?
Yeah, so a few things. First of all, I'm really proud of the fact that we managed to modernize the go-to-market strategy in the cyberspace. So many cyber companies are selling the old way, right? A lot of outbound, a lot of outreach, aggressive marketing, and we try to take inspiration from other hyper-growth companies that are focused on a product-led growth strategy, meaning bottom-up motion, catering to practitioners, and then moving up the ladder to executive sponsorship. But first, making the user in love with your product, and then you see that the buying motion is very different today. So I'm proud that we managed to really take that philosophy and put it into cyber sales. So just for an example, people can sign up for our product without talking to any salesperson. But then in turn, our sales team is bombarded with inbound leads and people who are, already familiar with the product, already love it. So now it's just a matter of, closing the sale, if that makes sense. So that's probably one of the big successes.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you mentioned there, mirroring your success off other hypergrowth companies. Which vendors and which other leaders in the space have you looked up to and tried to replicate on?
Yeah, so we actually most of the inspiration we try to take from non-cyber companies. As funny as it sounds, but like companies that excite us, like Monday.com. We really love their whole go-to-market philosophy. In our market, we tried also to take inspiration from a company called Sneak, which is growing fast. And one of the only cyber companies that take a product-led growth strategy. But most of the inspiration we try to take from Monday.com, Notion, those kind of modern companies.
Yeah, good stuff. Cool. And I guess as well, for our listeners here, what would be the key challenges that you faced, or you could envisage for someone else who's perhaps in your shoes? They're looking at founding their own vendor, and they're setting out like what challenges have you faced that you think could potentially resonate with these individuals?
Well, where do I start? But I think maybe I'll touch upon one challenge that might sound small, but it's kind of key to succeed. So we struggled quite a long time during sales calls to get down to from a surface level pain point of the customer to really understand what they're looking to do or what really bothers them. So, in a sales call, in a conversation with a client, usually the person talks about, okay, what he or she thinks they need, right? But then when you start asking more questions and get down to the deeper level pain point, why really they're trying to achieve what they're trying to achieve, then you are able to create a more solution-oriented sales and really solve deep problems. And I know it sounds like sales 101, but that's kind of a thing that I saw also my colleagues are challenged by. So having that deep level conversation with clients and not being afraid to ask questions all the time, user interviews, whether paid or not, any kind of interaction with our clients. So just to give you an example, we have onboarded a product in the past, I think, year or so that allows us to record our sales calls. And we have retrospectives and reviews that actually review together sales calls, and we learn so much of it. So really the challenge was, how can we get that insight from our customers, a deep level insights and pain point, down to all of the team, so we'll be simply better problem solvers.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, would there be any kind of methodologies that you'd look to implement across the organization to kind of encourage this, make sure that the reps on the ground, they're really kind of uncovering these pain points?
Yeah, so first of all, I would really recommend any kind of system that can record calls to, onto the cloud or like a specific place. I can't overstate how much it helped us as a company. That's one thing. And second thing is it's important for sales and revenue leaders to provide visibility to the entire company about the sales funnel. So to give you an example, we have a weekly basis Slack message. So we work with Slack within our company, where you have also all the sales team, but also all the R&D and G&A and everybody. And on a weekly basis, we give update on how many opportunities we had, how many demos, how many POCs, and people see trends. And that way, you see a lot of innovation from people also in the sales team, but also outside of the sales team. Like, hey, why do we have, what happened in the demo trend this week? Let me help. Like, I have an idea, blah, blah, blah. So that is really a very effective way to create more, like resource multiplication without recruiting anybody.
Yeah, good stuff. And I guess kind of finally to wrap this up, in terms of advice, looking to someone who's setting out on this venture, maybe they've just set out, just about taking the solution to market. What advice would you have for these individuals?
Try and fail. That's probably the best advice I can give. Try and fail, and make sure that when you try, you can measure what happened. It's the insights that you get from the actual market and from actual customers are way better than what you are able to conduct in brainstorms in your basement. So simply try it out.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on with us today. As I said at the start, thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your day. And yeah, look, really looking forward to sharing this one with our listeners.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
Cheers. Thank you.